Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a torta with a bad habit. Buy up, buy up. Let's get straight to the intro. Believe me, the intro is banging. Welcome back to Gunners Collective TV. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure that you push it, put the notification bell on all. That way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. I appreciate your support. I'm very humbled by it. Thank you. So I was asked a question. Who did the Paisas kick it with in the county jail? Well, it depends. It really, really depends. And I mean, nowadays, in my county jail, the county that I'm from, Merced, they keep the active Nortenos segregated away from all general population, meaning there's going to be no Paisa intermingling. There's going to be no blacks, no whites, no Asians, others, any of that. It's just going to be Nortenos. The foundation is set, and that's how they're going to proceed. So basically, they keep the Paisas, the blacks and whites together, and the others. And then, of course, the Southsiders are segregated into their own section. And the woods, they're just everywhere, brother, right? And that's just how that is. But back in 1998 in the Merced County Jail, when I was still functioning and active, the Paisas did lightweight function with the Norteños. Now, one thing about the Paisa car was this. We all knew that when you went upstate to prison in the California Department of Corrections, the Paisas had their own car. They had their own clica, strong clica, right? But they did function on the Southsider side of the yard, and they were up under the Southsider umbrella, meaning that if something happened with the Southerners, they were more than likely going to be involved on the Southern side, not the other side, right? Now, it was a trip because places like San Quentin that were Northern strongholds, or even Tracy, because there was more Norteños than anything, the Paisas kind of were cool with the Northerners. Didn't mean they functioned with them, didn't mean they kicked it with them or got involved in any of the shenanigans, but they were cool. And that's just the way it was. Now, there's a big stigma that there's always been that the Northerners were always taking advantage of the Paisas. Paisas being Mexican nationals, for those that don't know that word, right? That's false. That's false. Yes, there were some Northerners. There were gang members from North or South, Southsiders, Upstaters too, that were lightweight picking on the Paisas, lightweight taking advantage of their own people, their own raza. I was not one of them. I never believed in that. I believe, my family comes from Zacatecas, half of them, the other half from Juarez. So I was raised around Los Tigres del Norte. I was raised around carnitas in the backyard, in the pit. I was raised, with a bunch of paisas boning on my tias. That's just how it was for me. So I never had hatred towards them. And besides the ones that fucking used to beat on my tias, those were a different story. But anyways, I never hated the people because those were the people that I came from. Same sangre. Same idealisms. Now, I know the Paisas in Mexico necessarily don't like Chicanos, don't like Mexican Americans. I could understand the reasoning. There's a little bit of envy and jealousy there. But there was a lot of Chicanos that didn't care for the Paisas as well. They felt that the way they conducted themselves, that they were shedding a bad light on Mexicans. But it isn't that. Everyone knows Paisas are the hardest working people in the world, right? And I always had respect for them. So let me tell you a story about a riot that happened in Sandy Mush in 1998, 97, 98. I think it was 97. So the way Sandy Mush is a county jail in Merced. It's basically like a ranch, kind of like how Sacramento has the branch, and in LA they have different, little things going on. It's pretty much the same deal. So now it's segregated to certain sites, certain dorms. They have the active pods for gang members, and they have the non-active pods, and however they do it, right? But back then, everybody was everything. There was no Northern Riders. There was no 2-5ers. There was no degenerate or dropouts. I mean, there was in the state prison, but county jail, no one was playing them games. There was no structure there, right? The Norteños, it was a free-for-all type thing. Like, they were all Northerners. They all kicked it together, but it wasn't like mandatory workouts. It wasn't like fucking turning your 5-on-5. It was none of that of what it is today, where now it's all militant and very, there's a lot of security implemented. It was nothing like that. It was just a whole bunch of homies in the county jail doing time. If you wanted to do a push-up, do it. If not, fuck you. And that's just how that was. So at that particular time when I was there was probably there's 3 different sides of this prison, or of this. It's basically like structured like a prison, but it was a county jail. And it was the 500 side, the 400, and the 600 side. Now, there was 3 to 4 dorms that housed probably, I think at that time it was anywhere from 40 to 50 guys. And so you could do the math, but there was about 100 Northerners combined. Now, they used to open up all the doors, and we'd have like a yard where we walked around a track. We'd all intermingle. You can go in each other's dorms, kick it, get comida, bust a spread, whatever. And then, of course, you walk to the chow for breakfast. Lunch was a sack lunch, and then dinner. So you got a hot tray in the morning, a hot tray at night. And it was cool. It was like pinta shit. You get the pinta jacket with the beanie, and you mob in the fucking fog to breakfast. And, you know, I remember back in them days, there wasn't motherfuckers getting stabbed or battery packed or nothing like that. It was more so a lot of respect. And you seen fights from time to time. Shit went down, but it wasn't like a everyday stabbing thing. It just was different. It was real convicts doing real time. You know, there was no time for the bullshit. When there was an incident bad like that, heads would roll. So there was about 100 Northerners from everywhere, from Merced County, dudes from Fresno, dudes from San Jose, whatever. And it was all good. It was all good in the hood. I remember it was a lovely time to be a Northerner at that time. We had control of that place, meaning we were the deepest, and we had it going on. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of things going on in that yard. Shit I can't even speak on. But there was about 20 Paisas. And the Paisas were cool. They didn't kick it with the Northerners. They all kind of intermingled with each other. But we had a homeboy from my neighborhood that was a Paisa. Okay, so it's like this. He's a Mexican national. He was born on the other side, but he was a Norteño, right? So his allegiance, his loyalty laid with the Norte. But he was cool with the Paisas. He spoke very good Spanish, whereas a lot of Northerners at that time weren't really up to par on their Spanish. Me, myself, I couldn't understand a lick of the bullshit. Right now, because I was in prison, I was taught, and I understand. I don't speak it as well as I understand it, right? But back then, I didn't. And it just is what it is. But he did. And so when he wanted to have great conversations, he'd go kick with the Paisas, chop it up. You know, like I said, man, there wasn't no segregation shit. So what had happened was, in this place, there was about 100 whites, right? Now, the whites weren't all affiliated. They weren't like all Woods, brother. It was a county jail. You had dudes that were coming in there all tweaked out. You had dudes, and they were off that prope dope, that crank, the old school shit. You had dudes that were bikers. There was a lot of bikers in that area. You had dudes that were just regular old white dudes that listened to Mac Dre from time to time. And then, of course, you had the Wood type brothers and the Skins. But they were all white guys. So they intermingled and chopped it up, and it was a white thing. If it wasn't white, it wasn't right. But there was never no animosity there until this day. So what had happened was, my homeboy, being that he kicked it with the Paisas and chopped it up with them all the time, they were in a different dorm. Okay, my homeboy was in my dorm, and it was all good. We were top heavy with Northerners, man. Rag top, straight up. There was about 20 of us in that dorm, so we were cool. A couple blacks, few white dudes, and they were going to suffer the repercussions, brother, unfortunately. And that was that. We had one white dude in our fucking dorm. He was a big old dude with a star tattooed on his face. I remember, when he got there, I thought he was a Norteño. I hit him up, hey, bro, why you got a star? And he was from Orange County, but he was a skinhead. Big fucking monster, just big old fat ass. You know, MC Fat Ass and the fucking Funky Bunch. And so he was cool, though. Never no issues, man. He was just, everybody was cool. So what had happened was, there were the Paisas, there was about 10 of them in a dorm, and the white dudes over there started to punk them, right? They started to take advantage of them. And back in them days, there was a lot of people, let's just be real, man, 90s, late 90s, early 90s, there was a lot of people that took advantage of the raza. They took advantage of the fact that the Paisas couldn't speak English, so they couldn't really say nothing. There was no help. You know, people looked at them and shunned them, and it was just the truth. But again, if we knew this was going on with our raza, as a Norteño, we had to aid anyone, you know, of Latin descent. That was one of our bonds. So even though the bonds were not really being implemented back in them days, still, it was like a brown thing. You know, you're not going to see another brown man, just like a white man's not going to see another white man get punked by another ethnicity in front of him, or black or nothing like that. You're not going to see that happen with the Mexicans either, unless they were north and south, and then they'd kill each other. So anyways, these Paisas were getting jumped on, and one of them gets beat up pretty bad, man. He gets punked for his canteen. And so the Paisas are not saying nothing. They're just taking it, right? They're just taking it. They consider it like kind of snitching to fucking ask for help or whatever. But one of them tells my boy, and he tells my boy Angel, like, hey, these white guys, man, they're taking advantage of us and whatever. It's a cry for help. Basically, what do we do? What do we do? And my homeboy's like, not what you do, it's what we do. And so we throw a junta. And I remember that day on the yard, man, the homeboys gathers all the homies. So there was homies from everywhere, man. It was hella canalismo going on, right? And he's like, hey, man, these dudes are taking advantage of our people. And then there was hella homeboys like, man, those aren't our people. Those are fucking paisas, They let them handle their own business, bro. They ain't going to jump for us if it gets tricky. And he was like, yeah, but... And then he tells me, hey, they're beating him up. They're fucking choking him out. One of them got choked out in the bathroom when he was taking a piss. They're threatening him, threatening their fat. Oh, anyways, the Woods were in there having it their way, brother, right? They were in there like, we're taking all the Paisas coffee. And that's how that was going down. And so the homeboy convinced, I was already convinced. When he said they're taking advantage, I was convinced. He didn't even have to convince me. Motherfucker, I want to fight anyways. Back then, I was a young knucklehead, right? Long Mongolian flowing, and I was tongue Polian going. So I was ready to go. So the homie pulls, well, there was about 20 homeboys from my neighborhood. He pulls them all to the side. He's like, hey, bro, if the rest of these dudes don't want to get it, we got to get it. For me, do it for me. And I said, say less, say less. And so we get at the Paisas, and I remember all the Woods were gathering up. And up until this point, there had never been nothing like this. No riots, no melees. It wasn't structured that way. Like I said, it was all word of mouth. Everybody would chop it up. There was an issue. Dudes could go in a dorm and fucking handle it. Knife fights, whatever you wanted to do. But you've rarely seen motherfuckers get off in the yard. Like dudes would get dudes that were scared that would try to PC up and get away. They'd get snatched up and thrown into one of those dorms and get mollywopped. So it was never like, I think I see one or two fights outside of the dorms, but it was like just some sneak attack shit. It just never went down like that, especially between different ethnicities. Because even though it wasn't prison, man, there's always that racial tension. Always in prison. It's always been like that, or county jails. So anyways, the whites see us all gathered up. We're talking to the Paisas. The Paisas are like, no. You know what I mean? They don't want no issues. They don't want it to come back on them. But we're like, no, fuck, that's too late now. The homie's like, no, we're going to get off. You got beat up, you son of the Paisa. You're going to take flight first. You're going to kick this shit off, and we're going to stab all these motherfuckers, right? And the Woods are seeing this, and I never seen so many white people gathered since the Super Bowl, right? They were all right there, and they're talking, and that big fat fucker with the big old star on his eye is right there running the program, right? And I see him passing out pieces and all kinds of shit, and I'm like, oh, man, these white dudes are prepared. I ain't got nothing but my dick in my pants. Rather extensive, but that's all I have, right? This guy use it as a bat. And so we're the homies are like, don't trip, man. We're gonna do it smooth. They're gonna think we're gonna move on them out here, but we're not. What we're gonna do is we're gonna hit them in every dorm. We outnumber them in every dorm, except for that Paisa dorm. There was, like I said, about 10, 15 Paisas, but there was a gang of Woods in there. That was their little stronghold. Now, big boy with the star, who eventually we come to find out was like the shot caller for them, right? He kind of just muscle deboed his way in there. He big U'd his way in there. He was in my dorm. So it was mine and another homeboy's responsibility. Ooh, I was scared to the motherfucker, man. He was a big old Wood, right? Palo. But I was going to do what I had to do. And this was one of the only times I could tell you in my life that I hit someone, besides in Hawaii, when I hit the dude from Isa Riva, I think he was from, he's from Pico Rivera. No, Isa Riva. When I did that one time, I was like, man, I did that. But this one time right here tripped me out. Anyways, so the homie's like, we're going to get off in all the dorms. He's like, me and a couple homeboys, we're going to trade with a couple black dudes that are down with us. So there was some black dudes that were like, hey, we'll rock with you. But we're like, nah, this ain't a black thing. If you guys want to do it, we can't dictate your program. Whatever's going to go down in the dorms. And the brothers is like, best believe this. The brothers are strong, even though the NA's the deepest, right? They were willing to put in some work because it was a black-white thing. But we were like, nah, we don't need all that. It wasn't even a racial thing. It was the fact that they were being mean to the Paisas. And so what happened was this, trip out. So the homeboys like we're going to trade with a couple black dudes, me and a couple hitters. We're going to go in there with the Paisas and rock these dudes. Look, after chow, they do a fucking count time, right? So what would happen there is, being that we're in dorms, there's a door, there's a button that you could press. It was like an intercom, right? And you could tell them, hey, we need this or we need that. We need toilet paper, whatever, right? They'll open a supply closet, let the fucking dudes get the toilet paper and whatever, and boom. But the cops were never in the dorms. It wasn't like there was all eyes on you at all times. That's not how it was. You were in that motherfucker. You guys had to police yourselves. Okay, the only time cops went in there if there was an incident, if someone pressed that button, was trying to roll up out of there, because that's what happened. You would beat a motherfucker up, make him press the button, and roll it up. Get the fuck on, right? Or they went in during count time, and because they didn't need to go for chow, you walked to the chow hall for breakfast. When you came out of the chow hall, you grabbed a sack lunch. That was your lunch. Eat it whenever you want, right? There'd be motherfuckers smashing the sandwiches on their way back, and then dinner was dinner. But they do count time 2 times a day. They do it in the morning time before they release yard, and they do it after chow time in the evening. That's when they do. Then we'd have like a lightweight evening yard. It was like from 5 to 6 or whatever. You had an hour, whatever. So the homeboys said, well, this is what we're going to do. Now the whites are alerted. It's not like they weren't knowing what was going on. They didn't know we were going to get off, but they figured like the Paisas had told us what time it was. So everybody was like quiet. You could hear a church house mouse. The motherfucker was like, that's exactly how it sounded. Just like that. Quiet as fuck. Besides your kids yelling in the background right now. And so I remember, man, the homeboy was like, we're going to wait to after chow, after they do count, they're going to lock us in before yard. Fuck yard. That's when we're going to get off. So the homeboy figured like this. He goes, if we get off in the yard, helicopters are going to come. They're going to break it up quick. And that's kind of like a cowardice move, a PC move, because we're just doing it to get the shit stopped fast. Like, we want to fuck these dudes up bad. Like, we're going to get ours. We're going to show them why you don't fuck with our people. Now, the cold part is, here's the cold part. And this is the truth, right? Now, I'm all for it at that point, right? I'm like, whatever. This is North, right? I'm ready to ride with the homies for any reason. I didn't even need a reason, you know? Motherfucker could have spit in our direction and it was on. But I reflected back to like a year before, right when I got out of Y, and I was cruising with the homeboy, and we went to a taco truck, and there were some Paisas all faded, and they acted stupid with the homeboy Angel, and he knocked like 3 of them out, right? And I was like, hey, bro, why are you beating up on the Paisas? He's like, fuck them fools, right? They ain't homies, right? So, mind you, now he's super fucking Paisa'd out. Now he wants to help him. You know, why can't we be friends? Porque no más amigo, man, right? Why can't we be amigos? But that's what amigos are for good things and bad things. I be on your side forevermore, right? But back then, the homie was knocking them out their boots. So anyways, I reflected back to that. It just flashed through my mind like, this motherfucker, Captain Save a Paisa. But back in the day, anyways, he's like, this is the way we're going to do it so the cops can't, so we can get off. Now, you need to understand, in the building I was in, there was about 20 homies, right? But there was about 15 whites, brother. And the big bad wolf was in there, the big fat dude, right? I forgot what they called him. He had a star, and he slept right in the front on the bottom bunk. And I slept in the back of the area by the TVs. So we're kicking it and we're waiting. So what they would do is the cops would come in. You all had to stand in front of your bunk. Like, everyone stand up and they walk, they do their count, and then they bounce, lock the door, and you're in, right? And the cop, his name was Officer Longo at the time. I'll never forget. He was a sergeant. And it was a trip because his son was from a rival neighborhood that we didn't get along with back in the days. He was hella cool though. But anyway, so he's walking through, he does his count time, and someone says, hey, Longo, how long do we got till fucking yard? One of the white dudes asked him. Because what we come to find out later on was the white dudes were going to get off on yard. They were like, fuck it, man. These Northerners and Paisas are going to get off. We're going to fucking make a move first, right? They didn't get to make that move. So we already pre-planned. And that's the crazy thing about ex-convicts and gangs and prisons and all that, is everyone's plotting. Everyone's planning. Everyone got different ideas. Their whole thing was, let's get out in the open because there's less of us and we can get off, and then it is what it is. Our thing was like, let's fucking hurt them bad. Let's catch some bodies. We don't want the cops to fucking break it up. We want to catch bodies, right? So it was different mentalities. Not to say anyone was crazier, but just what we were on. So they asked him, and he was like, yeah, you guys got about 30 minutes. Get ready. You know, we're going to do yard release. Cool, right? So we're waiting, and there was all glass windows in the front. You can stand right there and look and see the other dorms, right? So we have a little homie. He's waiting right there, like waiting for the fucking thing. I don't know what he was waiting for. It wasn't like the homeboy's going to throw a fucking well-got bird flag, like, whop it, let's get it. Hey, all of a sudden, you just see like someone's back hit the fucking glass across from us. Homies were getting off, right? And I said, ready? The homies are like, yeah. And the white dudes are like, they're on point because they're waiting to go to yard. They're probably strapped up to get off, right? and the big dude is at the window like this. He's like, all right, his bunk. So he's sitting on his bottom bunk facing the window, and he's sitting there like this with his arms crossed. And I see him looking like, what the fuck is going on over there? Homies are getting off in every dorm. Boom, boom, boom. You don't hear no alarms because no one's got to the button yet. No cops, right? Cops are walking around. They're not even noticing smoking cigarettes on the yard. And I took off at a dead run. I told the homeboy, the homeboy had a sock with a big ass fucking rock in it. I said, as soon as I crack him, let's just get him, right? And I took off running. I was skinny, Mongolian, flapping in the wind. And I just ran up and big dude was sitting there. And as soon as he turned like that, I cracked him. Boom! Timber! Oakwood down, brother. Oakwood down, right? Brother, what the fuck? He just hit me. It feels like white lightning. No, it wasn't white lightning. It was brown lightning. Toss! Cracked him. That motherfucker fell on the bed and was hugging the pole. And I got to kicking his fucking head against the pole, and the homeboy was on him. Boom, boom, boom. The other whites, homies were just on him. Boom, 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 boom. There was fools handling their business. Don't get it twisted, Woods. I got love for you. You guys were handling your shit. But not that day. So what happened was this fucking J-Cat Asian dude, right, who no one really cared for. He wasn't a weirdo. He was just a fucking, he used to lick the walls and shit. Mao Lao. He was a weirdo. That fool goes to the button. They're having fights in here. Homie cracks him. Boom. He falls down. Yes, it had to be our stupid ass dorm to be the first one to alert him. Cops come running in. Next thing you know, they're like, they're getting off everywhere. They had all of us snatched out on the yard, stripped us buck naked, everything. They took all the Northerners, most of us, not all of us, but most of us to the county jail downtown. I ended up going downtown, which was cool anyways, because it's better off there, right? And that was it, man. They had a gang of homeboys in the bubble with the Southerners, but they kept them separated. It was crazy, man. A lot of the woods, there was a couple of woods that got stabbed. There was a couple of Northerners that got stabbed. It just went down, right? The Paisas handled their business. So it's basically the Paisas and the Northerner versus the whites. And I remember when they snatched us all up and they had us handcuffed and they're taking us to vans. They were putting us in vans to take us downtown. And because there's no hole there. It's not like that. You go to the bubble. Or there's like a few cells that could fucking segregate you, but whatever. It's not built like that, right? So because if you fight there or get in an incident, they just take you downtown to the other jail, the old downtown jail. So as they're putting us in vans, all the blacks are banging on the window. It's like fucking crazy movie. They're like, the BSA's got off! And you can hear homeboys saying, NAs, right? It was crazy. Anyways, so that was the time that the North and the Paisas got off. And I remember, man, they put me downtown and I was in a holding tank in the front. And there was a Southerner across from me. They kept him in the front. He had like a medical condition. He was like, hey, what happened? What happened with all your homies? And that was when I was high powered. I can't talk to you, right? But I was like, yeah, we got off, bro. Us and the Paisas and the whites. He's like, orale, that's what's up. And that was it. You know, that one, I'll never forget that because I was kind of like, they would have did the same shit. You know, anyways, with that being said, a quick story, man, of the day. Yes, Paisas in North to get off with the whites, man. A little melee. It was back in the days, but it was exciting and it was fun. I never seen that big fat dude again. I looked for him around Merced, you know, because he was from Merced County. Never seen him because I was gonna crack his ass again because for good times, for cheap times. Right? Anyway, I was stupid back then. With that being said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's gonna be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive for what I truly believe in, and that's the betterment of all people. Again, like I said, I'm not here to glorify anything. It was just a time in my life and a situation that happened. Again, one more again. Let me say that to say this. I always talk about my W's as well as my L's. Today was a W. Today I won. I got lucky. The gun. Bang, bang.